Now, we all like to save money. Hey, I don't have a choice. Kids in college and everything. I just went down to Body Shop Supply today. Now, this used to be, I don't know how to, I looked back at my old receipt. It used to be $18 a sleeve. A sleeve is 100 sheets. This is $220. It's now $33 a sleeve. Almost double. In fact, it is double in price. But here's the point. It's 75 cents a sheet and $33 for it. It's less than half price if you buy a sleeve. So it's a good idea to, if you're going to build models, you're going to need 100 sheets of sandpaper is really just enough for a year, half a year, 2 years, whatever. But you know you're going to eventually need it. Why not buy it and get, instead of getting 50 sheets for one price, you get 100 for a little bit less. It's not a bad deal. Always buy the sandpaper by the sleeve. Now, the way we're doing this finish, we've got 3 coats of clear on here already. But what I'm going to try to do now, and this is not really a thorough sanding, 220, as soon as I see tissue dust, see, nothing's coming off. As soon as I start, there we go, a very light sanding, and as soon as there's dust from the tissue, now you can see it. As soon as that tissue dust starts coming up, I know it's kind of flat. Now see, I can see the low spots, the high spots. I just need to burnish it right off. Burnish it right off with the 220. This is not sanded. Once you get that and you see it going into the tissue, you got to stop. Otherwise, you're going to, if you go through the tissue, you've gone too far. Now, one of the ways, if you take advantage of the fact that you're building a foam plane instead of a built-up wing, is if this was a built-up wing, you couldn't do this. You can really go through really a lot quicker than you think you can. Try to do as much as you can with a sanding block. As soon as you see that tissue starting to come up, you want to make sure you radius all the edges. Always use your finger to feel for spots that are not done. See if you can see that on the macro lens. I don't know if you can. But it should go, I would say, no more than an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours for the whole plane. Not a real intense thing, but you don't want to go through. That's the whole key. The key is to rough it up, knock down, there's a tissue joint, knock down all the edges, but not to sand back down to bare raw wood in any spot. Well, it's 6:30 in the morning and we're going to try to head down to, look at the nice azaleas blooming here. Anyway, we're going to try to head down to Middlesex and see if we can get some flying, and it doesn't look too promising though. It's kind of a dismal day. Oh, look at these azaleas. It's about the time of year that Rutherford, with its tree-lined streets, this is one of the reasons Karen and I love this town. If you've never been to Rutherford, it's a strange little town. It's an old Dutch town. They're not allowed to sell liquor in the town. It's one of the few dry towns left in the state of Jersey. And this time of year, the trees get all, I don't know, leaves, tree-lined streets. It's really pretty. Anyway, off to Middlesex. All the old houses. I always look, this is one of my tests for knowing if we're going to have a good day. We come up over a bridge, and if you look down at the water in the river, I don't know if you can see this, if the water is calm and there's no ripples on that water, usually we'll have a decent, at least half of a flying day. They look pretty calm, but you never know, they're predicting rain, so we'll see what we can get. It's a gamble. What'd you do to those geese over there, man? They're going crazy. Ah, shush. They pooped all over our field. There must be 10 pounds of goop poos. Goose poop. Poop goose. Shush, and stop pooping on our field, you suckers. Anyway, over here with the double star, Joe's got Mr. Awesome. We may get some flights in before the rain. Now, what we did yesterday, I did the whole day of testing with that slotted tongue muffler. Got a couple of flights on this. And it worked the best on this muffler with none of the holes clogged up with 6/32 screws. 12 3/4 prop, 14.5 cut down. And we're running no uniflow in the muffler, the tongue muffler with the holes. Listen to those geese, jeez. Unbelievable. You gotta watch. Yeah, they can be dangerous. Now, what did we change on this since last week? Just the prop?
Let's see, who's the guy from California makes them mufflers?
Tom Lay.
Tom Lay, yeah, I got his muffler on it just to see how that'll be.
And what do you got? It's a 14.5, okay.
It's a cut down 14.5, 12.5 diameter, but I repitched that to 5 pitch right on.
Okay. Well, this out here,
it's not.
Believe me, this is a 13.6 rev up day here.
Okay, which I don't have, but
yeah, no, I got them in the truck. I got one flight on this, but this was kind of soft, but we want to dial into it nice and easy now. But right away you can tell when the air is this turbulent, you really need the most pitch you can get on the engine right now. This is a little on the underpitch. Now this tongue muffler is just a little more restrictive than the one that's wide open. The wide open slot one is usually the one for you want to use for maximum power. This is kind of the in-between guy. But still, this was a nice soft motor, and if we were in good air or runway air, this would be just fine. So this is the problem of flying in this field, is the trees are around 2/3 of the circle, and the air comes in all kind of funny here on one side. So when it gets breezy like this, you really have to, well, it's certainly not runway air, that's the whole deal. For anybody that's never seen it, you know, actually these trees have grown about 10 feet over the winter. Look at the size of these trees.
it's not bad now. You just wait, turbulence is maybe the problem right now, but
yeah, you got it's bumpy. Yeah, it's bumpy air, that's for sure. Yeah, just take it easy on the first flight. Down on the other end of the field where it's open, it's not bad, but over here it's, you can see the wing when it's coming around a level flight, bouncing around. Did you do anything to keep that prop from jumping off?
yeah, I
Just put a peg in there. Just a couple drops for that.
scuffed it up, put took some parting wheel, cut some grooves in it.
Yeah. That double star has a nice knurled back for going on the props, boy. It's like a file. Nicely machined. Boy, this buffed up beautiful. It's unbelievable.
And I got a ratchet wrench in my toolbox.
Nah. Let's see if it stays on. Laugh no more.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, here come the geese. Watch it. Go on. Go home. Yes. Unbelievable. It's kind of crappy, but it's good enough that we'll get some. We're definitely going to get some flying in here today. One of the things you might be able to pick up off of this tape, I've already done this prop dissertation about the 14.5s. Now, Joe has one. I have one on a double star, so you get to compare a Tiger, really almost exactly the same prop. A Tiger and a double star back to back here if we get Joe to shoot some footage later. Now the trade-off with the 14.5 is always, in conditions like this, you can see the wing rocking, and this turbulence that you fight. Under these conditions here, normally a 13.6 rev up will work just a little bit better, usually. The 14.5 is always the first choice for runway air, open air, clean air. Look at the wind bank. These are these little surprise bowling balls that go through the circle. So, you know, we've lost some of our flying fields, and it really isn't, you know, beggars can't be choosers here. I'm also trying to look at the tape and determine if the motor run is equal. Okay, you can hear it's coming on and off pretty even on outsides. Some of the things we can figure out from the tape here as we go home today and look at this. You can see the wing rock and see what's happening. The air comes over the trees and it turns into little bowling balls or whatever golf balls. But still, Joe and I have a saying that the worst day at Middlesex is still better than the best day at home watching Oprah. So we're out here getting greasy and having some fun anyway. We'll try to get some footage of the double star. And you can listen, mainly the thing you can get off is not the flights. Tsunami is an old plane that's, you know, probably seen better days, but the thing you can hear is the motor run. And if that's the characteristics that you're looking for, if the tank is shimmed equally, is the prop pulling fast enough and yet not winding up? Now this looks like, if the air doesn't get any worse, this looks like a real nice comfortable lap maneuver speed. Now even as you go into a 2-cycle here, it's in a dead 2, the plane isn't going fast. Basically acting like a big Fox 35. It's that classic Big Jim 2-4 brake. Now see, it's the maneuver speed, especially some of the places you can see this is in the square 8. Nice slow maneuver speed. That's one of the things you get with the 14.5 rev up. Now, with the 13.6, it tends to speed up on the downhill side just a little bit more. But it's always best, as we do, is have them both, fly them both, try them both. By the process of elimination, see what's going to suit you and the conditions the best. That's why I always carry a van load of junk with me. Whenever you have a rainy day and you're sitting around nothing to do, carve up some props. Make those props like I showed on the prop video. A little more pitch, a little less pitch. So you can always tell that one of the advantages I like in a 14.5 is the downhill maneuver speed is very slow. Downhill out of the maneuvers is really nice and controlled. And that was the same with the 4-blade that we had on a Spitfire at the end of last year. We really had that pitched after about 30 trips to the pitch gauge. We really had it just about soft, especially when Chioda flew it. The first thing he commented on was, ooh, nice speed control. We haven't even started with the Seafire development stuff. We're not going to be worrying about that too much today. Today, they're predicting rain by noontime, so we just would like to burn as much fuel as possible. And one by one, I can mark these props up, which ones seem to be just about at the right pitch, which ones have a little more pitch, which ones have one. I know Joe, this is one Joe pitched up to 5 right here, so this is one he'll probably want to put in the bank. Nice speed control on that flight. Whoa, look at this landing. Whoa. Pretty awesome landing.
You even managed to miss a boat.
Alright, well, we're still working on it, even though the air is, I guess you can see from that last flight that Joe shot, the air is really gone by now. But it's still better than being home, that's for sure. Again, most significant thing is we can hear the motors run. And when you play back a tape, play it back with the sound turned way up. Now see, Joe's at the point. This ship is a little heavier than Tsunami. If he wanted to, just an increase in power now, the two choices would be, if the air gets any rougher, is take one of the head gaskets out, assuming that there's 2 or 3 in there, and that's always the first choice, or have a muffler with a little less back pressure. Now, in the case of this Tom Lay muffler is a relatively restrictive muffler. It's quiet, has a nice sound, but it's relatively restrictive to a tongue, especially a slotted tongue. But these props, as I said on the prop video, these are the props that after you, I guess 90%, one of the only conditions they're not really suitable for is the conditions we're in right now, where the wing is rocking and everything's jumping and jiggling and snowballs are hitting you and everything. This is kind of the only place they're at a little bit of a disadvantage. But boy, in open air, or boy, in nice air, what nice speed control. And you're not working the motor hard, the motor isn't wearing itself out. You get almost infinite motor life. In the early days of the 60 guys that would try a 60, no good, too fast. And they were running 6-pitch props with stock heads, stock compression, 10% nitro. Couldn't figure out why they didn't have good speed control. Well, years have gone by. Look at this thing rocking around. See, we're really at the point where it's almost not going to be productive. We're not really getting feedback now. We're just trying not to crash. But one thing a day like today will do for you is when you go down to a good day, and tomorrow's Mother's Day, so obviously it won't be tomorrow. When you get to a good day where the air is even reasonable and flyable, it's like flying a Piper Cub. And it's nothing. And you're rocking and rolling and getting whacked and hit and all kind of things making you crazy. But see, I had expected today to find a limit on these 2 props that are on here now. The limit where we couldn't get through a maneuver. And then it would be time to go to the 13.6. The speed will be more, but it'll burrow through a lot more of this bad air. But the opposite would happen. When you get out on a runway or you get in good air, you want to go right back to this prop. This would be, certainly on this plane, this is the best one he's had on here so far. And I guess the next time we do an update of the props video, I'm going to go through all these old flights and try to put a flight to show what I think some of the benefits of this, whatever you want to call it, prop development program. But when you're going to run a 60, if you don't have the right combination of prop, compression, and venturi, you're always going to have either a runaway, overpowered plane, or it's not going to have the characteristics, the true 2.4 big Jim motor run characteristics. So it's always prudent, if you can, get out on a bad day, do a lot of prop testing like this, and you'll know where the limit is. Then you go to a contest, and you see this kind of air, and you know, well, we'd rather have the 13.6 instead of the 14.5. But you'll know right about at which point you need to switch props. And in effect, you'll be, not a little bit, you'll be a lot ahead of the game. The sun coming out will only make this air worse. First guy in a puddle's got to buy lunch. Does that count?
Well, and this one got the other. But you don't have to walk for it. happened? Reed.
I just hope we didn't hurt them all.
Hey. I know one of the first tendencies is to always check. Did it pull right out of your hand? Or
Nah, not really. I was trying to get it to fly into the tree, so I didn't know if there was kids over here. Let me see the camera.
Yeah, let's see. We got a long walk. The plane is over there. It's about 200, 300 feet from where we started. Something broke. I assume it was a line. It took about half of my hand off with it. Anyway, these are the adventures of stunt. Whew. To the tree. Now let's see. Where's the first place of impact? Oh yeah. Impact-o-matic right there. Now luckily, see, this is where we were flying, way over there, and it landed here. There's the handle. All right, nothing broke at the handle, right?
Nothing broke at the handle.
All right, let's pull all the junk off of the field. We'll go do an autopsy.
Well, wait a minute. Before you move anything there, Wendy, let's just see what the end of the wire is.
Let me see if it's the readout or the wire or the clip or what. Talk about a heartbreaker. Oh, God. You got the end of the wire there?
Right at the solder joint.
Let's see.
Well,
can you tell? Yeah, it's a failure of a lead-out wire. And this is an 032 wire. This is not some lightweight.
The other thing, you have the other part you could examine.
Yeah. There might be a kink in that or something. You know, this plane, see, here's the problem, Joe. This plane has already been crashed.
I understand that.
And what happens is now you have to, here's what broke. Look, right here. Right here. It broke at the joint, but you don't know when it was flexing or how it was flexing or what. See, you can't really tell. Because this plane's already been crashed.
Yeah, I understand that.
Look at John DeTavio's name in here. Look at this. John, you're supposed to bring me good luck, you bum. Anyway, let's take it home, put it back in the van, autopsy it. Get all the guy. This is, hey, you live by the tsunami, you die by the tsunami. A fitting end for Tsunami. Now, as I always do after a crash, and believe me, there's no way to participate in the world of stunt any length of time without some time experience in these kind of things. The sad thing is here, we've already changed the technology. This is old technology we used to use is by putting a heavier piece of wire, I'll try to show this, through a tube and then a piece of wire through this. Well, Scott Smith saved us from that. He now has 48-inch wire, and we've made that available to everybody. Had we had 48-inch wire, this might not have happened. No guarantee, but anyway, you don't know. See, the original time this plane was crashed, I'd have to go back and look at that tape. The ring was bent, and maybe that wire had a kink in it. I don't know. This has been repaired, and I don't know. You know, I have it on video, and that's another nice part about video, but you can pretty much look at the controls in the plane, and, you know, it's a sad day at Black Rock, that's for sure. Anyway, push rods, you can salvage the push rods and horns, and I guess there isn't a whole lot else you can save. Boy, this was some nice light wood too. Every rib had a space on it. So whatever it is, it's a fitting end as John Sandberg ended the real Tsunami and he lost his life. All we lost here is a day of repair, a day of cleaning this up. When the lines load, just throw them away. I don't even want to think about
we'll
it.
Save the eyelets.
Save the eyelets.
Clips.
Yep.
Jesus.
Now I don't know how much until we go back and look at the video.
I'm trying to relive this in my mind here. What had happened is, of course, I was in the middle of, I guess, level flight. And this had taken and instantly done a loop, so you know instantly, just like a pilot does in a real plane, the down line was broken. I thought it was the line. I thought maybe we had stepped on a line or whatever. You never know when lines are going to let go. Not a good idea to be using old lines. In fact, we had anticipated, I brought the reel of wire to make lines today anyway. But, you know, regardless, I guess what I had tried to do here, I don't know that this is of any value, but Joe was out there shooting, and I figured if I could get it to go up into the tree, I might be able to have a repairable crash. And I kind of walked toward the tree, but then the second line broke, and you can see where it flew. It was way out in the middle of that, under the football field here by the time we recovered it. Anyway, I'm going to take this all home, as I always do a complete autopsy, see what, if anything, can be salvaged. That's a shame, and you know what? That's the last plane I have that has that technology. All of the planes from this one on have the 48-inch wire. Too late now, but what can you do? Autopsy, you can figure this out. I want to know how my gear block technology. Since we build all the planes now with this double gear block, guys are always complaining the gear come out of the wing, right? Let's find out. I bet the wire will break before the blocks break. My arm's going to break before.
Yeah, that's piano wire. That's not some low carbon stuff. So
I mean, I feel like we've got that under control now. There we go.
And that's,
the wire broke before and the gear block is still in the wing.
I'm zooming here. Okay.
Case closed. Anyway, not that it would matter. But this is the thing you can learn from a crash. If I did this 3 times and a block fell out, I guess you wouldn't want to be putting that on your next video, right? Now, when you think about the history of this model, this was the first one I made in the new shop, the new house. Think of some of the fun times we had going down to Texas, coming in 5th at the Nats. All the local contests. I mean, this has just been, I guess, a lot of memories flash through your mind here while you're picking up the parts. We cleaned up the motor, cleaned up the tank, and that was a real good running tank, by the way. And so it came to be. Tsunami. I'm going to take everything back. I want to make some little memory. Usually when I have something like this happen, I take little pieces of the plane and make little mementos, and I certainly will do that to this plane in good memory of a good friend. He was a good friend for a long time. I saved that little piece of wood with John DeTavio's name on it. And John, you were supposed to bring me better luck. After a day like today, depressing stuff. It's good to be back home. Good to be in your own yard, your own environment. Well, one way to look at it, there'll be no repair. Mother's Day tomorrow.
So you crashed Tsunami, you dummy. You should have named your bird, named the plane the Blue Jay, not the Cardinal.
Anyway, there's a lot of little things in life that just make life worthwhile. And boy, after a depressing day like today with my birds out here in a bird feeder are going to cheer me up. Ah! Even my birds have abandoned me. Oh no! Well, after autopsying this whole thing, as I always do, and ripping it from piece to shred and seeing what was salvageable and what wasn't, really not a lot salvageable, except for one thing, the tail. Without even noticing, I did a little stress test on the tail. The tail is in perfect shape, so what I'm going to do is offer this to George if he wants to put it on one of his RC electric planes. There's no reason not to use that, that's for sure. What I was just getting it to this point.
Anyway, there's a long story behind this, and the story is, this plane crashed, the wing folded, the old MiG. The wing folded, and if you notice that tail, a year later, that tail appeared on this airplane, on the F-16. So these parts do have a way of living on, I guess, in infamy or whatever. But right, this will be, lasting memorial here when we see George's electric plane fly, and he should be over here, well, maybe even today, to stop and pick it up. How about a little reverence here? Where's your big Tsunami?
There's old pilots and there's bold pilots, but there's no old bold pilots.
I thought you were going to bring your Tsunami over here. What'd you bring? What'd you bring? A fuselage?
I thought maybe see how the tail would work out on mine.
All right. Well, he's got his electric Cardinal. By the way, we're in the middle of trying to get the double, so you can see nothing goes to waste here. 10 minutes later, we got the double star ready to shoehorn into the Red Baron. Ah, another electric Cardinal. Where's the first one? You got it all put together?
Oh, the first one's doing it. I just started.
Come on, put it back the way it should be. There you go. Have a little respect. I'd like it if that was your father. I took him out of the grave and shoved him in a can like that. You can take that home if you want. Hey!
You're not good at making puzzles?
I was today. Now, what do you have, an opaque microscope at home?
Yeah.
I have a feeling maybe all that soldering flux didn't come off and that wire just got corroded away.
This is the one that broke with no wire.
The one with no wire broke, the one with the wire...
Broke right at the solder joint, didn't it?
Right at the end of the joint. Now, remember though, that plane's been crashed once already, George. I mean, it's been crashed and bent and rebent. Maybe that wire, you only get to bend it once. I don't know, you know. Anyway. Now this went in kind of no big deal. In fact, I'm going to use the old spinner again, even though it doesn't match up just right. Fits right in. We'll have another test plane as soon as we get a day, as if today counted. Now here it is. Let's see. What time is it? 4:15. 4 hours after being in the Tsunami crash. Like in motorcycling, when you have an accident, you're supposed to get right back up on a bike. Well, this is about as close as you can come to that. Now, while George was here, he dropped off all the anodizing parts. We got some more mufflers. We have 5 more Super Tiger heads here. Mufflers with a little bit different hole pattern, venting pattern. Different weight heads. This is a stock one. Some of the ones that have most of or almost all of the fins taken off for continued tuning. I guess one of the questions you might be asking is, well, why doesn't he just take it and put it in the Seafire and be done with it? Well, that might be coming. It might be coming soon, in fact, the way we're running out of planes, 1 per day. There's a thing I wanted to try with Tsunami. Tsunami was in the low 60s, and I wanted to know if this motor, the power characteristics being pretty much like a Super Tiger, I really wanted to know if it would pull the planes that are in the low 60s. This one is in the low 70s. It's going to have to work a lot harder to pull a Red Baron, that's for sure. But this is the way you're going to find out. You know, there's always that easy thing, testing, and you just sit down at the desk and write about what a great engine tester you are. Or you go out and test them. And this is the second plane that we'll have the double star in. We'll try to get a couple days of flying on this next week. Maybe a day with Joe on Saturday, I don't know, but basically I want to have it in this plane and maybe even Strager before we actually try it in one of the elliptical wing planes. It's Mother's Day! Say hello to everybody, mother.
Hi there, son.
What are they, little roses you got up
Yeah,
there?
they were like $25.
Look at the wolf.
When they had them out there, beat them up. She got them for $1 a piece.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness,
One
nice.
red one she wants to keep, and then there's 3 pink.
And what's in the big pot up there?
Oh, that's oh, we've had that for years up there. We got 2 or 3 of them up there.
$1 a piece for these?
Well, goodness.
Look, where's Darren? Hey, where's Darren?
What do you think?
Where's Caesar? Come on, Caesar! Come on!
There he is.
Come on, Caesar!
There he is.
Come on! Come on! Come on, you little sucker!
We were outside doing the horses and some stuff.
You for Mother's Day?
48 for $8.
48 for $8? Wow.
No. Yeah. They were 8 something, then she gets a
Wow.
15% discount.
Well, she's
my
cheaper than I am. Wow, look at
Most of
this.
them
How's the
give you
backyard?
36, but
You didn't plan anything yet, did you?
I didn't pay $8. I paid $11.
Nice piece of property.
like
Where's my dogs? Where's my hat?
Oh, look at these. Look at, oh, nice.
This is all a horse show.
On Mother's Day, you're not supposed to go flying. You're supposed to go see your mother. So here's my mother.
Well, I think you're condemned.
Giving up a good day of good flying. I could have gone and crashed another plane if I couldn't see my mother.
You know what? I bought 3 bags of it. I did the whole garden.
You know, Karen was just saying, Ma, how you raised me right.
Yeah.
You gave me the right priorities in life. Fish, birds, and dogs.
Yep.
Yeah, I see.
A little thing like this.
Now this grew in 2 years. This is what we want to get for our vines, the wisteria. Look at how it grew up the side of the pole and everything.
Isn't that great?
Wow. We definitely want to get some of this.
Wrap it around.
How many plants did she plant?
See, he only has a few blooms up there.
Just one.
Wow. Well, that covers the whole deck. That's going to be so nice, huh?
Oh, it was way on the roof. Roy cut it all down.
Wow.
But look at all the flowers it's having this year.
Yeah, you're going to have blooms this year.
That's what I want to
We
do.
only had about 5 or 6.
We got plenty this year. Look
Now that grows all by itself, right? You don't have to worry about that?
Hens and chickens?
Yes, we
We
did.
got hens and chicks.
Mine. I just nuded around it a little bit, but
Oh, look at those. They're
But
cool.
they-
Oh, you got nice little hens and chicks,
weeding
yeah.
is not my thing. I get dizzy when I bend down. There's
see
another
them.
one here.
I
but
get
this
dizzy when I
one
pay the credit card bill.
She brought that from upstate New York.
This is what we want to do in our back. Look at the size of this. I can't believe this. It's like a tree.
Well, that's what
Karen, you better think about this. This is like a tree.
What Gordon
Thing is 3 stories high.
I have no idea.
I'll
what
ask
she
her this
brought.
week.
Wow.
I have no idea where
And a Rolls Royce, is it still back there?
still back
Here,
there.
honey.
Oh yeah, there it is. It's hiding in the garage. Nice 1951 Rolls Royce in mint condition.
And it blooms so nice.
Some backyard. This is some piece of property. Where are the horses?
Yeah. No, I'll buy some others.
Ma, what does she have? Just 2 horses back there now?
Yeah.
One of her horses died, and there's only 2 left.
Oh, that horse died a couple of years.
Yeah. Believe me, it's a traumatic thing when your horse dies.
We didn't even dig the barn.
Now listen, for everybody that's sick of looking at windy bill planes, there's more to life than aeroplanes. There's horses. There's wisteria. And we're going to try to go, if I can. Next door to this piece of property is a guy that has the biggest koi I've ever seen in a pond, but we don't know if he has it uncovered yet.
But not so quick.
Now, if you don't know, my brother-in-law Roy is a member of, I think he is the president of the Corvette Collectors Club.
We have a fence.
He has a 51 Rolls Royce, you can see it in there. A couple of the old, this is an old Corvette, a 54, 53. Probably needs a little maintenance. How many people have this in their backyard? And I guess this is another Corvette here, there's 2 of them. He used to have one of those gull-wing Mercedes back here. Cool. My brother-in-law is one of the coolest guys around. I guess the coolest thing of all is he takes good care of my mom. This is a horse, of course, and no one can talk to a horse, of course. Hey, do you guys eat the fence?
See, this is what they do to my brother-in-law's corral. They eat his corral because he doesn't feed them or something. Hey, Yuffie, how you doing? Hello. Where's the other? These guys are mean. Look at how they've eaten this fence away. You think with all this? Hello, you silly thing. Anyway, hey, it's Mother's Day. I'm spending this day with my mom, and we're gonna go plant. Planting. Now, what's cool? This looks like the baby rabbit. They saved this baby rabbit. The mom got killed. And they have this baby rabbit living in their cellar. Hey! Baby rabbits! He is a cutie.
I don't know.
Ma, how many rabbits are here now? Just one?
Only one. The other one died.
The other one died?
I don't know why they don't let them out. They'll only get...
These little bastards. Shush! Shush, it's Mother's Day. You're supposed to be respectful.
Supposed to shut your big mouth.
Shush! Oh, man. How do you put up with Yeah, I remember seeing this. Now, yeah. Oh, they're right out in the sun. This is Roy's neighbor. You got anything? Look at the size of these guys. This is unbelievable. I don't know if you can you see?
What you gotta do is if you're in autofocus, you might have to go manual to focus to the surface of the water.
Yeah.
Hi guys.
No, we're on manual focus now. Let's see if this works.
I'm saying you can actually focus through the surface onto where they are. There's an auto camera to focus off the surface.
Boy, these are some nice fish. Wow.
They're big guys. Well, you don't realize how big this little thing is.
How deep is this?
It's about almost 5 feet deep.
So he's got 3. When I was here last time, I only saw 2.
Well, this one has the big guys on it, because that one has some. So he might have even gotten rid of it because there was.
Oh, and there's some little fish up here.
Guys over here.
Oh, wow. Now that's a, what is that, a comet? That's not a koi.
I don't really know that much.
That's a
about it.
comet.
Can you get that close to that?
I don't know. You don't know if you're going to see it.
Don't focus much closer to
Yeah, but boy, that's some nice fish he's got there. Nice waterfall, too.
Well, this whole thing.
He made this whole thing himself?
Well, there's some guys that came over and did it. But this whole thing is all man-made.
That is beautiful. Yeah. Now we're going to get I hope, a couple hours of testing here before we're going to go back to the house. And you never know. This place, here's the whole deal. The wind looks good now, and I'm going to try to rush through a couple of flights. The reason is, now the motor is in a much heavier plane. This plane is 10, maybe 11 ounces heavier than Tsunami was. And it really gives you a good indication of when you put the motor under a load, how it's going to work. Now, one of the things I anticipate, whenever you have a heavier plane, bigger plane, you're always going to want more compression. And again, I don't have any bigger Venturis, but I know that the way it was tuned, it was real nice for a 60, 65 ounce plane. Now we'll get some data as how this is going to be in really about a 75 ounce plane. And the thing you're always trying to accomplish is by doing all these testings is to get the motor to 2.4 the way you want it to 2.4 with a nice solid hard motor run, but not to the point where it's radical, where it's giving you errant blips of 2-cycle power when you don't want it, but always keeping that in control. And this will be an excellent test plane for that purposes if we can get some flights in here before the wind comes up. Now, one of the things I've done here at the club field, I used to use these big pieces of wire to hold the stooge down. I pounded in about a 12-inch piece of, it's 1-inch dowel. It's really railing that I got left over from working on the house. And I think this system is, and again, I might be getting a little old and paranoid here, but I've heard of some really awful stooge accidents where things have popped and let go and whatever. And I just think this system, as opposed to the nails, be a little bit more secure. And it may be an idea you can improve on. And I expect guys, just an example, Noel Drindak always has good ideas for these kind of things. I also put the extra little guide for the wire in here. Try to do a couple little updates, even though the thing is in really mechanically fine shape. I like to update it, upgrade it as much as possible. And here's a typical scenario you may run into if you're retrofitting this motor into a plane that pretty much had a Tiger 60 in it. This plane has always had a Tiger 60 in it, except for the 51s and VMAXs. And it always trimmed out with a little bit of nose weight, a half an ounce, or a heavier muffler or whatever. But now we're entering a whole new world. This motor is an ounce and a half lighter, and with the tongue muffler, it's probably legitimately 2 ounces less in nose weight in a plane. So what I'm going to do, the first thing, I want to try to make a trim change. See, we never were able to explore this area of trim before because, first of all, we didn't have any lighter motors that would pull the plane. You can see how I've got the handle biased. This plane always turned a little bit tighter outside than inside. So what I'm going to do is move this all the way closed before I try adding any nose weight at all. The plane has a much more violent turn. Anytime you can take weight out of the nose, you're going to wind up this scenario. Weight out of the nose, close the handle down. It's almost guaranteed that that's going to happen every time. Now I also had to keep in mind this plane was built in '88, so it's 9 years old. I also had a crack on both sides of the fillets here. We had, during the test program last year, we were developing props, and we had a couple of chip props and some real vibration runs, and I had noticed a little bit of kind of a crack around the fillet. I wanted to be sure oil didn't get in there while we're running a test program. Now obviously we could do the cosmetic repair at some future time, rainy day or whatever, but for right now that'll keep oil from soaking in there and making that joint get worse and worse and worse as, you know, we go through the day. Now normally the cable would give you 2 or 3 different clips before you have to replace an end, and I don't like getting the ends like this. I don't like this, that I just feel like that's getting too dangerous. So I'm going to cut the cable out of here and just replace the whole cable. Always carry extra cables and crimps, of course. One thing worth mentioning here, making the ends, you really don't want to make this end any bigger than necessary, because then what happens is it's always doing this. In other words, when you're pulling on this cable, it's got an extra little area of that it's going to be kind of rubbery, and I've noticed you can even feel a difference if you make these. You don't want to put a kink in the cable, of course, and it's always a good idea, believe me, ask anybody, replace the cable every year. A year, especially if you don't adjust the handle constantly. So this is kind of like good maintenance anyway, just to pop a new cable in. Also, now I'll have 3, 4, 5 adjustments before I have to replace the cable, assuming I'm going to need them. But with this amount of nose weight out of the plane, and you really never know, when you're flying a plane, you never know just how dramatic that change is going to be. Is it going to be real dramatic and you only have to go in 1 notch on the handle? Of course, you could always put nose weight back in the plane. And keep in mind, it's also changing the vertical CG of the plane, replacing motors. And we ran into this when we did this with the 51. When this plane had a 51 in it, it had a really super violent corner, and we even needed nose weight, and the vertical CG was even had to be corrected because the 51 had a very light head, and we had all that weight on the bottom of the plane with the tune pipe. So it's constantly a back and forth thing of, when I get home today, at the end of this day, I might put nose weight in, a heavier spinner, a heavier I could put the stock muffler back on, in fact. But until I find that nice comfortable area where it turns and doesn't bobble. And there's always a little plateau, a little area, it's usually within a ½ ounce. You'll find it, and the handle is set, and you can get almost every corner to pull out just about the same. The trick worth its weight in gold. You go out to adjust neutral on the handle. Here's what happens is the smaller this spacing gets, the more sensitive this is to being off by a few thousandths. So what I try to do is I try to get what I think is neutral before I fly the plane, and then I'll take both sides of the cable and do this. Put a little bit of a mark with a Sharpie marker. These are permanent markers. You can buy them in any Staples. And now what that does, when I loosen up the cable for a fine tuning, I can go half of that amount, a third of that amount, based on how much I think it's off. I can move the cable in or out, but I never lose my ground zero, because if you do, you're right back to where there's no, you don't know where you were, so it's difficult. Now you're just taking another stab in the dark. And no matter how many times I could do this 1,000 times. I guess other people can do it a lot better than me. You get everything neutral, you take off, and it's a little bit up, a little bit down. It's always a little bit, but if you want to get it right, it's really important, and that's a good trick, a good way to do it.
Now, a couple of things about the engine so far. Another gain you get if this works out is this engine uses about an ounce less fuel than the Tiger as it is set up right now. So you're carrying around an ounce less of fuel every flight. Oops, there we go.
Okay, gut impression here. Handle, I think we could live with the handle, even though it is overturning just a bit. But again, we have the stock muffler to try on there. You notice how Mike has cut the grass. The plane disappears into the grass here. Anyway, the other thing I'm assuming, and I assumed it all along, is one by one now I want to start taking the head gaskets out of the motor. I want to make sure that you know, this was really dialed in for a 60 to 65 ounce plane, and it really was on cool weather. Now today we're down to our t-shirt here, and the air is puffy and moving around. So this might be a good day to start upping the compression. And as long as you know which way you're going to go, you've got a chance of getting it right. Okay, we started the day with 6 head gaskets in there. I took 2 out to start with. Now some of these are so thin that I doubt it's making much of a change, but there's one in there that's like a Tiger gasket, and that'll make, when we get down to that one, that's going to make a radical change in power and fuel consumption. Now remember too, this is, I don't know if you can even see it, a relatively warm day. This is the first day we've been in, you know, in a t-shirt by 10, 11 o'clock. Very unusual for this time of the year. As the temperature goes up, you want the compression to go up. You want the pitch to go up. As the temperature goes down, you want the compression to go down, you want the pitch to go down. Kind of a simple formula. It really, you don't even have to write it down. Even I don't have to write it down. And it works.
Now you can use whatever information you think is appropriate in any way you think of testing motors. There's a lot of different ways. Obviously a lot of people tell you they did things, but they really didn't do it, or they have such a limited amount of testing ability. Doesn't even pay to comment on it, but believe me, what's unusual about Pampa lately is just how many motor experts we have. I don't know how many of them test at the level that Big Jim has done in the past and that I have done. Maybe they all do, I don't know. But I know I do. And I know a lot of this stuff may seem redundant, it may seem boring. It may seem like, why doesn't he use a little more scientific approach, make a dynamometer, get a computer, or this or that or the other thing? And all I can say is, you see this big oil stain on the field? As the year goes by, this stain is going to get bigger and bigger. Fuel jugs are going to get emptied. And at the end of all this time, the main thing is, at the end of this time, that we have a feeling of where we want to set the compression for a heavy plane, a light plane, where we want the Venturi to be at the end of this test program, and we don't have any extra Venturis yet. In fact, I'm going to have to go to maybe I'll go to machine shop today and make a couple. It goes without saying, you know, without tuning parts, you really can't tune. Anyway, the motor's been real friendly, real fun to work with so far, too. And one thing nice about this motor that I like, personally, hot starts are really nice.
Now, of course, one way to accomplish a similar thing would be to have some 10% fuel, some 7%, some 12% that vary it. The reason I don't like that, number one, anything above 5% usually works very well as paint remover if you get it on the plane, and I really don't like doing those repairs. That is one of the worst repairs in model aviation. Another thing too, it makes such a radical change when you change fuel from 5 to 10 or 10 to 12. It changes the fuel consumption, the heat of the motor, the heat range of the glow plug. It's too radical of a change for me. So what I resign myself to is always having all of my tests done with taffender 5%. And that usually gives me, now it's easier. Just think of the choices here. I'm going to take some more head gaskets out. I'm going to get it down probably to 1 or 2 by the time we're finished, because this is a heavy, draggy plane. But the deal is that if I run out of head gaskets to take out, then I might want to try 7%. I might even want to try 10, especially if it's real hot. But it's a lot easier. Think of what's happening here. It's a lot easier to up the power by upping the compression than it is with the fuel. It's cheaper, and you don't have to carry the extra ounce of fuel around with you. So it's kind of a win-win-win-win-win situation. Now I usually wind, by the way, double star screws are metric. Even though the wrench looks like a 440 would fit, you always use the metric wrench. You can get metric wrenches from SIG, you can get metric wrenches from OS Max, but you'll have a very limited life of the screws if you don't. Now I remember when Tom was first bringing these engines into the country, they had the normal slotted screws, and boy, they didn't last too long. But now he supplies the engines with the Allen screws. A nice upgrade, that's for sure. By the way, we've been trying plugs back and forth with the Thunderbolt and the SIG. Right now I haven't had a failure on either one, and they both run fine. That's good information. The motor really loves 5% PA. Absolutely, as far as I can tell, that's the fuel of choice. Again, we had a lot of, in fact, we had 6 head gaskets in here when we got the final tune on Tsunami that we were happy with. But again, it was a cold day, and every time you have a cold day, you're always putting gaskets in to try to kill off the 2-cycle power. Now today, the air is so puffy and wimpy and hot, we're tuning for exactly the opposite thing. And I'm sure in the near future I'm going to upgrade, update, whatever you want to call it, that engine tuning video with part 3. It says, by the way, I always try to loosen opposite screws. You want to tighten them that way, just like as if you were putting a car engine together, if you've never done that. Over tightening the screws, you don't want to do that. You want to tighten them reasonably. Wait 2 or 3 flights and just snug them all up. Make sure one isn't looser than all the others. It's more important that they all be torqued equally than that they be torqued at some, I don't know, imaginary high torque setting. Okay, there's 2 gaskets in there now. We're going to try running 1. Anytime you have the head off the motor, it's a good idea to look and see if you've got a clean burn. In this case, it's almost perfect. It's burned almost equally all around, maybe a little darker right by the baffle. But that's a real nice clean burning head there. Now, normally if you're doing a squish band, you'll notice, well, it really doesn't burn exactly the same. You always wind up with a dark spot by the baffle, nothing happening over here, all kinds of crazy things, especially when the compression goes way high. This is really, I guess, as far as stock motors go, as close as you can get to being stock and having it right out of the box ready to fly. This is a great little thing, from camera, film. Keep the gaskets in here. They don't get bent and twisted, and you can put your name on there, return to Boris Yeltsin or whatever. Now again, you can just compare how different one of Big Jim's Hemis are relative to this. This is a lot less of a dome, but again, this is working on a different engine. Now I had thought at one time we were going to be able to, since the heads look almost identical to Super Tigers, we'd be able to use some of our Super Tiger test heads. Only one problem. If you notice, Double Star uses their bolt pattern front to back. Super Tiger is 1 o'clock, 7 o'clock. So in effect, if you put this head on the engine, the piston baffle would hit. So we really, maybe while we're done now, I'm going to have to think about machining up some heads, because it doesn't look like It's that easy to get parts for these, and I would like to take one head, this is one of my experiments I'd like to do, and really dish it out like a true Hemi rather than having all the gaskets in there. Again, I wouldn't want to do it and not have the stock head to put back on the engine. I'd want to always be able to go to the field and have the stock one and the one that's Hemi'd out a little bit more. Again, more on that in the future. Right now it's running fine with the stock head, and we're down to we're going to put 2 gaskets in there and give it one more shot. Well, in the last 15 minutes or so, we have really lost the air. Actually, I really shouldn't even be flying this flight. I ought to take the fuel out, but I'm probably just going to end the session here. We've gotten something accomplished. I have some real good basic feedback. And one of the things I know, let me take the battery. One of the things I know for sure is I'm gonna have to put some of the nose weight back in this plane. This plane is not real happy with this, even though I got the handle closed all the way down. And I have choices now. I can go check the vertical CG and see if I want to put the heavy spinner or the heavy muffler. My first choice, if possible, is always a heavier muffler. And actually, in this case, probably the stock muffler will bring it right back to where it was. But we did get some, and again, the important thing here is we did not lose a good flying day to do this. So when we get a good flying day, we can come out and get flights. We're not cutting and trimming and all this nonsense. Again, anytime you up the compression, always open up the needle a bit. It's always going to run a little bit richer, and it's going to run out of fuel just a little bit sooner. The air is definitely gone. Anyway, we did get some good preliminary work on this motor. And I really want to have, see, the idea is to use all the information I can get now before this actually winds up in a contest airplane. And I can do that very conveniently even on days like today when I'm actually losing a day of what would be called practice, but at least I'm gaining on knowing what the engine is really happy doing, what it's not happy doing. So far, this looks like a real positive, look at this flag blowing, a real positive approach, and it's working well so far. Back to the shop. I'm going to tell you something you're not going to want to hear. Pick the plane up. Robert is having a motor run problem halfway through the flight. Don't spank your ass.
I just
He tells me to give up my beautiful airflow. Look at what this guy's running. You don't think this would lean out halfway through a flight? Now here's the problem, okay, some of the problems. Obviously, this tubing should be tucked up against the engine.
Okay.
Not hanging down. This is throwing your motor run off, just having this here the way that is, okay? So you want to get the tank, maybe even get a piece of copper tubing bent here. I don't know, you could think of the alternative ways of doing this, but this is definitely making it less reliable than it would be without it. This uniflow tube should be over here, coming out this side of the fuselage and connected with a piece of tubing. This is less efficient here than it is here because you're up on an air wall here. It's pressurized. Out here, it's kind of siphoning it. I don't know. I've never seen these be the way they should be. I like to have that on this side, drill a hole through, and then connect it with a piece of tubing. But for sure, this should be all tucked up like that, as small as possible. Then you want to try running the tubing over the top to see if it makes any difference, top or bottom. And you say with this
muffler, it runs true. With this muffler,
okay,
it runs when it gets halfway through.
And you got Randy's muffler, and it wasn't running true. But see, you don't know. With something like this, that's not a reliable test. So next day you get a day here at the field, we'll try to resolve this. But new tubing, clean the filter. Can't get much accomplished when you have the fuel line all busted up like that. Sabatino was at the field today. He's flying around with a broken fuel line, and he wonders why the motor's going lean. Anyway, another Nobler, as if we didn't see enough Noblers, and this one looks, of course, exceptionally nice. You made this right off of the kit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see the little S1 and S2.
It's a son of a gun to build, though.
Oh, yeah.
I built this vertical, like this way,
Yeah.
pinned down, and then you gotta set all the ribs in,
Right.
and trying to keep it square.
Well, this doesn't look bad.
No, that
Yeah, it looks real good, in fact. The only problem is, like I said, when you go to Hinge, the old-fashioned, when they had cloth hinges, it was fine. when you go to Hinge 2 round surfaces, you're in for a rude surprise because you can't get the controls to move more than about 6 degrees.
You know,
I know, I'm gonna save you a lot of aggravation because it doesn't work. Trust me.
okay.
Trust me, I already did it. The wing looks nice. Let's see how it's...
The wing is, got a little set. See it? It's got a little
Yeah.
bit of this. And I had that nailed
You
down.
can get that out. You can get that out. That's
I
no
had
problem.
that nailed down so hard for every operation, and it still did this.
Yeah, but you don't have rods, that's why. See, what you should do, I'm telling you, I did my own, I made it work. But if you made another one, you could set the rod holes in here
Yeah.
and do it like a cardinal. That would take care of that.
Well, you know what you know what happened with this? One of the leading edge quarter squares
Yeah.
was a little funny, and these things were a little funny. But I figured,
Yeah.
as long as I make
See, another thing you could do, if I knew you would, at this point, you should make both wings the same. Make them both big. That like modernizes it a little bit.
Okay.
Nobody will notice. Let's see how the leading edge looks.
It's about an inch short.
It's not bad. I mean, it's
The whole wing.
It has. You see, you got a little bit of a bow and a leading edge. Can you see that?
Yep.
You see the bow? It's like a starving horse.
Right there. Yeah.
Right, now if you take that big sand block right on your, where's your right hand? Go, take that block and lay it up on here. I'll show you what I'm talking about.
I believe you.
Okay.
I can see it. I don't
You could borrow that block if you want.
No, I have.
Hold it up there.
I have a good straight edge.
Okay, hold it up there and you can see it, probably a 1/16 of an inch.
Yeah.
See, that's something you want to get. Another thing too, whenever you make a noble, you want to get that this is blunt. Because if this is pointy, the plane really never flies level the way it should.
Okay.
So blunt this out is, I don't know how much.
Okay.
Usually when you can see the leading edge for a whole 1/16 and the sheeting ends and there's a 1/16 showing, that's about right.
Okay.
Yeah, and this, you can soak this with ammonia, the way you can get this out.
And then shim it on the ends and weight it the opposite way.
Right. Soak the both sides of the trailing edge with ammonia and put either a shim, yeah, you want to put, so it's bowed the opposite way.
It's about a 1/8 difference if you turn you from.
Yeah, if you have a
side to the
flat
other.
piece, yeah.
It's
Yeah, but you want to get that out before you cover it, that's for sure. Yeah, it's an eighth, but you go an eighth in the opposite direction, let it dry day, 2 days, and if it isn't, then go a quarter. Still doesn't come out, go, you know what I mean? Each time you do it.
Should I wet only the trailing edge or
No, just the trailing edge. All you gotta do is the trailing edge. You only have a problem with the trailing edge there.
have a spar in there.
No, they have like a
It's
sheet.
1/16.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a shear web, but the shear web should be vertical grade, no?
Yes, it should be, but that's the way they made the kit years ago.
This is the kit. It's the original kit. You know,
Yeah.
it's the green.
So you really should have his squares here, and then shear webs in between the squares. That makes it bulletproof.
With the vertical.
But this worked. There is
If
no...
any of these are just a smidgen low, is that going to make a?
Nah. Block sand this all in. Block sand that in, boy.
The shit out of it already, but there's a couple of them that are not.
I just block sanded in. I wouldn't worry about it at all.
A couple of them.
These are high here. This is high. You can block sand that in.
Yeah, that'll block.
Block.
Okay.
See, you don't want to do it with this. This is too rough. But I'd like to do like 2 ribs at a time, then move 1 rib over. Do 2. Move. So don't try to do like. See, if you take the big block, you're only gonna not. It's only gonna hit the 1 high one. Where this will kind of let it ease into it. And don't sand that. That's carbide. That's from that stuff from England. Don't sand it until you get the warp out of it. Get the warp out of it first. That's more important. Another thing I would, if I knew you were doing this, I would have said is replace this with either an arrow shaft. You know, modernize it. That's no problem. This probably is going to work fine. And what the hell? Let's see where this is. Let me see how. It's all fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, I put them out exactly where they said on the plans. Hopefully
Yeah,
that I wouldn't
that's
have
good.
to move them.
No, it's, if you do, you get an X-Acto knife and move them. That's all. Well, where's the electric cardinal, Venturini? Electric cardinal number 2 coming off the drawing board here, or what?
I got the one, I hung it up, but the second one,
We're gonna go fly it tomorrow? It was a nice calm day today. You couldn't even, my van was blowing across the
I gotta
lot.
get a charger. I don't want to put one battery and,
Look at what George brought me. Now, anybody, if you're not from Jersey, you don't know, this is Steve's Steak. How many years ago, George? This is the Venturini family business.
yeah, that's in the,
And he took from black and white photos and made it into a modern painting. Really neat. Cool. Anyway, you don't have the body yet? You ought to put plywood doublers in the body. Don't make the body the way they should. Put plywood.
It's all made.
I'd rather have the plywood in the body, you know. See, now this'll be fine, but obviously in a thing like this, you'd like to have adjustable lead-outs, number one. Now, how long has it been since you actually flown? 50 years?
Yep.
50 years. So my suggestion was in the beginning to build a profile, and obviously that's what
I've
he
got
did.
a high wing thing. That's something, looks like something like a T-craft with a wingspan about up to here.
What kind of deal is this? Is this some commercial thing?
No. That's some kind of hinge material.
Oh, okay. I never saw that before. It looked like Scotch tape. I was thinking, wow, this guy's really looking to make it like...
No.
See, another thing, you never want to solder by nylon. Never. It detempers the nylon and makes it brittle as glass.
Oh.
That's a no-no. Soldering by nylon is a...
So what I do, hope and pray that...
Well, yeah, hope and pray is all you can do. See? I'm trying to get this.
What do you do in lieu of soldering then?
Leave the wire nice and long and put a wheel collar on it. Now, a couple of things. These tanks, when you get them, this is a razor blade. This is a razor blade. I
can feel it. Yeah.
You could cut your fingernail on this. Anyway, this is what Robert had. He had this tubing, and then a kink 90 degrees. Well, of course, it's going to cut the tubing right away. So, this I don't like, because here's what happens when you have your hand underneath here. Look at where the prop is.
I know, it's tight.
I would put this up on top and put the fuel line on the bottom. You could bend this the opposite way. That would be an improvement anyway. Yeah. And you get under here and that exhaust is blowing, or even if worse, if the mufflers are on there, you're going to burn your hand.
Yeah, bringing the.
I would always put this on top. That would be a suggestion. I don't know how long. I'll be interested to see how long this is going to last.
Well, it's nylon. Fuel doesn't bother.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're going to find out.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the point of arguing?
It's tight. I mean, it's really...
It's what's happened. Sometimes you want to put a little piece of closed cell foam in between the tank and have it soft mounted. Sometimes. These motors usually run pretty smooth though. Yeah. Let me see this. Now this I don't like. See, soldering around nylon, that's always a no-no. And this has a lot of, see how much side, let me see this. See how much side play that has? Mm-hmm. That's going to be doing this in flight and beating itself to death. This almost would pay to what is this push rod made out of?
Whatever they sell.
Is this isn't music wire, is it?
No, it's from the hobby shop.
Oh.
From John, I think.
No, oh my God, I wouldn't use that for, well, it's your plane. I'm glad it's not, okay, I'm telling you, my lead out's just broke, right? Okay. No, but what I'm saying, this is not music wire. If you take this off and you put it between your fingers, you can bend it like a pretzel.
Oh yeah, you can bend it.
Now, hold the flaps down, push down on the other. See, first off, you got way too much travel. That's way too much, number one. This is how much you have, like 20 degrees. Anything more than 20 degrees is bullshit. It's just going to stall the plane out.
Okay.
So, let's see where you have the hole. First off, I would put that down in the bottom hole. That'll make it better. Not perfect, but it'll certainly be better. That'll be 1-to-1. Right now, you're probably like 3-to-1 or something. And you made the flaps smaller than they call for on a kit, right? I would put more hinges in here too. See how many?
Yeah.
Let's see, you only got one. Because here's what happens. If the end one starts to get some play in it, now it wants to pull it out. You always put, at here is where you need extra hinges. In there you don't, it's not going to pull out of there. Where did you put the hinges in? With epoxy?
No, that hinge cement.
What's hinge cement?
It's I guess it's not epoxy, it's a one-step thing.
Okay.
But according to what it says on it, it will glue anything to anything, and it's specific for hinges.
Well, these feel pretty strong. I guess you'll find out.
Oh,
Again,
I tried it. I put the hinge in and tried to pull it out, and you can't.
This is the biggest thing of all. See, you have no bushing in here? This is real important, is to have this in a bushing. Because this is going to want to, when you push up, it's going to want to pull this out. So you always put some kind of, you could even retrofit it here. Oh no, you can't because it's not on a center. See, what happened is you got this off of a center line where it's going up and down. This horn should be on a center line.
On a pivot of the hinge.
Yeah. None of this stuff is going to keep the plane from flying. It's just that you could make it a whole lot better with almost no extra work.
Yeah. Well, now it would be a pain in the rear.
I see you have lead on the back. Yeah, now it would be. But the next one, that's the whole idea of coming over here, is so that the next one is better. And you got enough lead on there now. Balances where the plans call for.
Yeah, about
right, the high point of the wing.
Yeah,
that looks good.
On the nose heavy side.
Well, for first flying, let it be on the nose heavy side.
That's what I heard.
But remember, this is, when they thread wire, can't is not the right word. They don't thread music wire.
Yeah, music
Because it wears the dies out.
Yeah.
But anyway, and what kind of motor offset pad do you have on here?
It's a long washer.
Yeah, see, now that is really an accident weight. Now, you should put an offset pad in there. I'll give you one before you go. In fact, I have some white ones. I'll let you have
Inside the washer?
Oh, what happens, you have the whole stress of this on one little, like on a point. Now what happens, that little point is going to chew its way right in there, and eventually these are going to be just a little bit loose. Then it resonates in, and before you realize it's done its damage, it's not only that, it's going to chew it all up to hell.
Yeah.
Oh, the offset pad is worth putting on. That only take you 5 minutes to put that on. It's no big deal. And the needle valve, and your exhaust hitting you on the hand, and oh man.
I was gonna, in fact, I had it on the other way. This was a FP engine, you know, with this carburetor.
Yeah.
And I bought the...
And today, I just got back from a camping store. I picked this up. I wanted to put this on the tape. I think Joe, we already might have this on the tape anyway. It's like $10, $11. And it's now they use these in real airplanes to protect the instruments. It's kind of like a tinfoil material. Two good reasons to have this. Number one, in a hatchback car like Joe has, let me just spread this out and show how big it is. It's really large. In a hatchback car, and it's a nice soft feel, it's not a gritty feeling stuff. In a hatchback car, what happens is the back window is like a little magnifying glass, and what has happened, I know Mike Rogers has had a plane damage. Joe Adamusco luckily had the Spitfire upside down and put a big bubble right where the focus was. I know people in minivans have had, because the curvature of the windows, if it focuses in on a plane, it's down, it can hit it just right. The ultraviolet light or sunlight, whatever you want to call it, can really damage a plane. So for $10, I think this is a cheap insurance policy. Now, another reason I wanted to have this is when Karen and I go to the team trials, we're going to be leaving right from the team trials, possibly not be able to get somebody to take the plane back. But what happens when I'm so used to having a van with no windows that this never was a factor. Now what happens, I go to the shopping mall and the airplane's in the back of the car. Yeah, every kid that walks by, oh, look at the airplane, let's go break into the van. So, probably doesn't happen outside the New York area, but I think this gives you a little bit of security. It's a $10 insurance policy that's real cheap. I know Steve Busso has melted a canopy. Mike, just to name a few, people that have had planes damaged by ultraviolet light sitting in hatchbacks and in back of station wagons. So this is Joe Adamusco came up with this solution. I'll put this up on the tape. This is, they call it an all-weather blanket. It's real, it's $11.99. See, I didn't even notice the price, but any place that has camping supplies, it's a real good insurance policy. Now, with what's left of a rainy day, this turned out to be a not too productive rainy day. Well, what I've been thinking about doing, something I haven't done in a long time, I want to mix up some filler. Now normally I like to brush filler on. The reason is you throw a lot less thinner into the paint mix. But what I've been trying to think about coming up with, years ago, Billy Simons did it, I've done it of course, is to mix up some silver talc and spray it on, and spray on 3 or 4 coats at a time and then sand it off. So that's one of the things I'm going to try to do with this plane, to use it as a little bit of a test bed. And obviously, either way, you have to sand it out, but it'll just save, oh, look at this phone. It'll save me a little bit of time anyway. Now, I'm closing in on having the last little bit of this sanded, and I want to try that silver filler on this. Again, it may or may not be a time saver, but at this point in time, when you're sanding down over the tissue, you're using your hand. You'll find any spot that's a little high, just kill it. Your hand is always the best indicator. And this is the best thing I know of, is spend the day when it's rainy or whatever, that you're not itching to go flying. So you're not under any pressure to finish in a short amount of time. Whatever time it takes, it takes. The limiting factor is when you see you picking up the silk span, knocking through the silk span, and no matter what, you have to kind of stop, put some more material on it, and sand it out. So this is coming out real nice. This is really, I mean, when you let the dope dry a few days, it just powders right off. Now, there's a couple of areas on here that really need some. This is always a spot that's a pain in the neck, because as the tissue comes around, there's always a bunch of wrinkles. So when I come up on some of these areas, I really want to spend a little bit of extra time now, not after I put the filler on, because then I can, even if I go through, it's okay. But I don't want to spend that extra time later on, and then I'll be right back down into raw tissue. And again, always use your hand to find the rough spots. The area that no matter how hard you work, you're always going to want to run your finger through here. And I can feel there's a little low spot there. So if you have a block and you work the block this way, and then you reverse it and work the block this way, then the last thing, run that polywog right through there. You know you'll get most of it. If you try to do this by hand, you're never going to get nice flats. Now, one of the potential savings might be, since we'll be putting silver in the filler, maybe we can even wind up using less coats of silver in the ultimate finish. But the point is, you have to build a substrate up with some material. You can't build it up with air. So if you do, now Billy Simons used to just spray clear after clear after clear after clear, and then block sand it down. You can do that too. That's certainly a good way. The only advantage of using any talc at all for filler is it builds up coats quicker. That's what you're trying to do, is build it up quicker. But this is sanded out so nice. I think 2, maybe 3 coats of that silver talc filler, another block sanding, and we'll be in Fat City. Again, this tip too, you can see always the wrinkles. Just block sand them down right now. And obviously, the more the high spots you can get out now, the other benefit is the plane is lighter. You're not filling in valleys, you're knocking down. Anytime you can knock a mountaintop down instead of filling a valley, you're ahead weight-wise, too. Probably that's the best reason the last 4 or 5 planes that I've really done a full finish on have come out considerably lighter than I originally projected. And you can just go over now, as we're coming up to the end of this, just go over the whole thing with your bare hand. There's always spots the second and third time around, you find. You find a little spot, you're always still going to see the tissue joints. It's not important to get rid of them at this point in time. Just make them that you can't feel them. And obviously, as soon as you see you down into raw wood, you really have to stop. That's it for that coat. I want to get all the edges knocked down, as we always do, radius, everything. All the corners. Most important thing is the corners. there's always spots the second and third time you go over it that you're going to find. Alright, we're almost ready to get some filler mixed up and give this a shot. Again, normally we use blue or purple, but never use red. And I think the silver will be a little bit of an advantage. But again, if it isn't, we can just mix some blue in with it, and it'll be no problem at all. Now, I know Rudy Ryback is busy doing exactly what I'm doing, finding the little imperfections. Rudy, I want to see that plane when I see it at the first meet of the year. El Perfecto. Now the last thing, I go in here with the polywogs and just with the tip of my finger just to clean up whatever edge I've left. Now I mixed up this, oh boy, you gotta put extra talc in there, and I'm waiting for it to decant as I always do. You mix up as much talc as you want and just let it sit in here. There's about maybe 1/3 silver, 1/3 clear. Both of them are already thin, so in effect they're 1/3 thin, and I just pour a nice big chunk of talc in there. 5 minutes, whatever sits in suspension 5 minutes, I'll pour out. I'll put it in one of the other jars or in a gun, and that'll be my filler, and we'll run a little test. Then from the test I can see if I really can't see the trace element of silver, I can add a little more silver paint. A good thing to do a test on is the tip weight box. Now this looks like it's a little bit light in the silver. I'm going to add a little bit of silver to the mix. I want to have it a little darker, the object again, so I can see the spots that I'm sanding through in. Now you can see how I've already gone right into the tissue. You can see how really nice and thin this finish is going to be. But we're going to put two, maybe even 3 coats of this on, so it'll eventually seal that tissue right back down. First coat always will be, the little hairs of the tissue will be sticking up through it. Well, I'm letting the first coat dry out. It looks like, well, no guarantee that we've beat the rain, but we'll try. I'm going to get at least 2 coats on this today if I can. Put some seeds in a feeder or Nowski. We got a dead man. There's the reason. Look, they ate all the seeds. Oh my God. Fill that seeder up. Well, as long as we're talking about some problem solving on this video, I have to mention this. Tom Richards. He is truly one of my favorite people. We spent a whole bunch of time at the Nats last year. He buys, looks at, checks out, and criticizes every video, and I love him for it. Now this is a typical thing that happens to people, and this is one way you can get yourself tricked into a problem. They went out to fly a Magnum with an ST60. Okay? And they couldn't get through the pattern on 8 ounces of fuel. Now picture, this is not 7, this is 8. Okay? Now because he had been watching a lot of tapes and pretty much figured out something's wrong with this picture. See, that's the whole thing you have to figure out. Is there something wrong? Yes, sir. 8 ounces of fuel is way too much for any 60. So what I did, in a long, detailed conversation, I tried to come up with some thoughts, since I can't really be there. What's wrong with this picture? Well, after we had a long conversation, and we were going into the night here, I found that, whoops, it's a stock motor, not a Hemi. Whoa, boy, does that make a difference. High compression. I asked him what Venturi size it was, and he didn't know the Venturi size. Well, you see what
You see what I'm getting at here? Okay, fuel. 10%. Well, looking at this scenario, I know this is a very common scenario, and this is probably legitimately, now not taking sides or trying to stack the deck or anything, this is legitimately. Years ago when you had the choice of running Super Tiger 60s or other motors, a lot of people would try a Tiger 60 and say, oh, what a terrible stunt motor, oh my God, too much power and runs away and they run away in the wind and everything. See, here's what would happen, is the people really didn't know that they didn't know. A lot of people, not everybody even has a rough understanding about motors. Well, the truth is a stock Super Tiger 60 really is a gas-guzzling monster. It's not a really great stunt motor until it's reworked. But Tom won't mind. In fact, this was the analogy I gave him, and this is a very common analogy. You can use this in a lot of things in life. Roast beef sandwich. Just remember this, anytime you're trying to apply this kind of technology, use the roast beef sandwich trick. Now what that is, and this is a common story in machine shop work or in, I guess, in anything. A guy opens up a restaurant and he has, fresh rye bread. Oh man, and it's just beautiful with the seeds on it, and he has lean roast beef. I bet you right now Tom is saying, oh, don't tell him that story, oh my God. Well, Tom, live by the sword, die by the sword. Anyway, the same thing goes, and you have some nice fresh mustard. Oh, this is great. And you combine it, and you have this awesome roast beef sandwich. Oh, it's so delicious. Wow. So what happens? This guy's restaurant sells millions of roast beef sandwiches, and they work well. Well, what happens is along comes, Bonzo, just for lack of a better word. Now Bonzo says, oh, hey, we don't need fresh rye bread. We can get the stuff that's a day old. In fact, we can cut costs more. Let's use cardboard. Cardboard, nobody will know. Hey, these dummies in the world of stunt don't know anything. And instead of using lean roast beef, they get all the fat and grizzle. Let me answer this call, and we'll come back to, don't forget this story. This might be Tom on the phone now. Back to our little analogy, and I think you really can get the point here in a big hurry. Instead of using mustard, you can use Bondo, let's say. Well, here's what happens. Then what happens is you can't compare this to this. It's not the same. And this is exactly what happens when you have a big Jim Hemi 60 or an engine that's been reworked, detuned, decompressed. You have this, and this is the man that did this, and basically I'm going to give all the credit to Big Jim, because even the double star is just a copy of his engine. And argue with me if you want, but this is hundreds and hundreds of hours of development to get the venturi, compression, shape of the head, amount of fins removed from that, to get this right. It's not like this. It's not buy a stock motor and replace the Allen screws and everything. It's not the same thing. And I know, Tom, this is the kind of stuff that can really make you crazy, is you're comparing fresh rye, lean roast beef, and mustard with something that isn't even close to being the same. And that's the reason when you go out with a stock Tiger 60, it's a big problem. It's not, you see somebody with a big Jim Hemi or even a double star that's been reworked, detuned, decompressed, has the right venturi in it, and you're frustrated. You put a stock motor in, especially if it's got a Tiger needle, and it's disappointing at best. And let me just, let's be honest about this. We're not running a popularity contest. A stock motor. You go to a swap meet, you buy a stock Tiger 60. It's got a squish band head with about 185 pounds of compression, way too high, pylon racer compression. Okay, and it was really Big Jim that came up with all this technology and has shared it with everybody, really. It's a shame. It's not really a shame that most people don't realize a squish band Tiger 60 is not the kind of motors that Bob Barron is using and that the Chinese are using and any of the other people that are using decompressed Tiger 60s. The Venturi is usually a 280. Well, that almost guarantees you're going to have no motor run. Venturi is way too small. This is the combination. It's deadly. Deadly, unstunt-like. High compression, small Venturi. That combination, even though you're sure you could fly a stunt flight with it, and sure you'll get through the pattern, and if any other thing, but there's no advantage to this. It's no better than any other motor that way. This needs to be turned into a roast beef sandwich, and it needs to have a Hemi head. Number one, it needs to have a much larger Venturi. The smallest I ever use is 300, and that would be on a light plane, 315 on a heavy plane. And always, another tremendous thing is 5% fuel, unless it's 90 degrees and you're in Nevada, 7,000 feet above sea level, 5% fuel. When you use 10%, basically you're trading away some of the motor run unless there's a reason for using it. Tremendous heat, humidity, you're very high, or the plane is very heavy. The 4 H's, pretend you're in the 4-H club. If not, now this is a roast beef sandwich. Now you've got something. Well, you know, even though Jim hasn't been able to do motors in the last, I don't know, year or so, it's worth remembering. He came up with this technology, and it's really a system that works so good. It's probably the only system that I know of that's been copied and duplicated in the Double Star. The Double Star is an excellent motor, but it's this technology that really makes for a roast beef sandwich. And Tom, I hope this, and thanks for sharing it with us, of course, but this is what's going to get you out of the woods and into having a really enjoyable stunt run or stunt flights and a roast beef sandwich.
Now, this is the kind of stuff that a week or so after a crash or the loss of a plane can just make you absolutely crazy. Everywhere you look, there's little reminders of, you know, what was, to me, a memorable plane, a fun plane. Certainly had a lot of good times. And I guess there always are reminders of the things that are irrecoverable. Tsunami is now on that list. And I doubt that I will be building another one. The way this thing is going with Joe, we're having so much fun with the Spitz, but going back and looking back, this really was a really memorable plane, and we really did have a lot of fun with it. And I'm just glad that we have, this is just another point, I'm glad we have so much of it on video, and maybe there's a lesson in there. If you have a plane of your own that you really like, or one that you've come up with, shoot some pictures, shoot some video. It's really good for the memories. I guess that's always one of the parts that hurts the worst. You walk past the rack where it used to be, and rather than be there, there's an empty slot. Anyway, we're at the end of this tape. I have a few minutes left. I'm going to put on one of my favorite memories of Tsunami. I'm sure you'll enjoy sharing it with me. But the memories are always good. And I guess that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons for building excellence into your airplanes, so that you have good memories. Tsunami really isn't dead. He's really still alive. Let's start putting the rest of the trailing edge supports in. If you haven't seen it, it's on the beginning of it's on the end of the last video. We have 2 of them in there now. We're just going to go right down the edge. What this does is it doesn't let the motor sink down into the mounts after 6 months or a year of vibration. The bolts don't come loose. You kill off a lot of vibration this way. These aren't drilled yet. I'm going to drill it for this specific motor. What I do, I C8 them right to the mounts as the first step. That's step 1, is get them glued right to the mounts. Then I'll mark off the holes by lining up the motor here. I will do this off camera. If you want more details on making up a crutch like this in detail, the Fuse construction video is the way to go. Obviously, we're going to use 632 bolts, 632 blind nuts. No cooling problems here at all, even if we get to go to Lubbock this year.
After Reno, Jack took Tsunami back to Crystal Airport, where he gave the airplane a fresh new look. 1991 was Tsunami's final appearance in Reno. Skip ran her as hard around the pylons as the airplane had ever flown. Jack Sandberg had big new plans to refine the wing design to reduce drag in the turns, but it was never to be.
This is tape 15 of the Tsunami set, and we're going to pick this up with paint and detail work. Leading edge, you always have problems with the leading edge. You never seem to ever have enough paint on a leading edge. I had a little spot out here on a tip where it needed to be touched up. And I want it to go right down the edge here. All the cap strip edges, that's where we're really concerned about getting enough. That same old thing we've been talking about, selective finishing. Rather than just blow paint on by the gallon, put it on where it's most likely to do the most good. Edges of the lettering. Kind of go around the lettering. Now this will all blend in. We'll be sanding this out again. Probably with 1200, but stairs in the new bathtub. So rather than start this, and I don't like to start it, only work a half an hour, and I get frustrated. So I'll kind of let this go for tomorrow. And look around all of the spots that we touched up. You can see the shiny spots here. Keep in mind, whenever you're doing this kind of stuff, watch the buttons on your shirt. Belt buckles, obviously get rid of rings, anything that can, gouge its way in here. I've done it many times.
miracles when the preacher said, for better or for worse. How lovely it was. Thanks for the memory of Schubert's serenade, little things of Jane, and traffic jams, and anagrams, and bills we never paid. How lovely it was. The folks that you forbade, rainbows on the way, and stockings in the basin of foliage the shade. Thank you so much. Thanks for the memory of tinkling temple bells on another yell, and Cuban water towels from the very best hotels. How lovely it was. Thanks for the memory of cushions. Goodbye, the harbor. The world that was yours is stupid, but we were. Never did come true. But the glad I never true. Thank you.